Good afternoon. Yeah. Actually, I will not go much into the background as already been mentioned, but I've got a paper which I've submitted. Under the paper, I talk about the abstract that ECOWAS relating to its free movement of persons, residents, and establishment was approved here in Dakar, exactly on 29th May 1979. That's 4 years after the establishment. And it was conceived as one of the pillars to ensure the bedrock of ensuring what we call the regional integration efforts in West Africa. And after that, we will look at the implementation and then see and identify there are some of the problems or challenges that ECOWAS has come. And it moves into the next level, that is ECOWAS of state to ECOWAS of people, which means next thing. And as rightly pointed by the moderator, the issue of migration has been time immemorial, whether we like it or not, even both in Quran and in Bible, it has been said there. And even in West Africa, according to the International Organization for Migration, about 350 million migrants scattered across the globe. Nearly 7 million people hail from West Africa. Then, so historically, we could see that the life in West Africa has been that of migration, as we might have known. We don't want to go into Kanka Musa, Toure period, and Idris Aloma. We know it's been part of us from time. But to go straight to the point now, with respect to the ECOWAS Treaty on Free, one, it seeks to get stability and development following the independence. But if we look at it, there are 3 stages. When you look at those 3 stages, is the first, free movement of people without a visa, and then the second one is that of right of residence, and then the third one is that of establishment. So we realized that even a sort of comparative analysis we did, we realized that in all the RECs, all the 8 RECs as well as brigades, it seems ECOWAS as well as CEDEAO were on the highest on this. And when you look at the comparison, we realize ECOWAS is at a higher level. So given that, we see that ECOWAS Protocol on Free Movement of Person, Right and Resident was signed in 1979, as I've said, and this guarantee visa-free entry for members for 90 days. Then it also graduated from that to what we call the ECOWAS passport, which was introduced in December 2000. And this passport exempts holders from intra-regional visa requirements and serves as an international travel document. And most of us, I know we have it. Then the third one is about the ECOWAS brown card, which this insurance policy for motor vehicles to go from one member state to the other with the civil responsibility of the owner to make sure that their commercial vehicles have the necessary papers. Then there's also what we call the harmonized policies for vehicles, and ECOWAS has worked to harmonize policies that allow private and commercial vehicles to enter temporarily inside their member state. So, but there are some obstacles, as I've said. We realize that both all the regional organizations, including ECOWAS, the need for visa-free is fine, but there has been some problems in terms of harmonizing these travel documents and streamlining it. We realize even in ECOWAS state that right now some countries, some member states, principally, they will tell you at times that we require this along with it. One of the requirements is the yellow card as well. And the obstacles, the main obstacles have been that of when it comes to the issue of language barrier. You see people traveling, some of the member states of ECOWAS, some are Anglophone, some are Francophone, and then 2 are also Lusophone. So these are some of the problems. There is also the multiple currencies as well. Some of the countries, they use CD, some use Naira, some use CFA as well, and then Leone in Sierra Leone. So it makes, and then the most important one is the issue of porous border. Despite the fact that people still have this access to go from one member state to the other without visa, you tend to see individuals. When I was ECOWAS, because I used the diplomatic passport, we tend to go free, but quite a lot of people said ECOWAS is for the officials and for the government, but really that they prefer to go with their money or go with their identity card to go. So because of this porous border, they go through some other lines. Actually, I can't call it porous border at times, but our unmanned territories as well. Political instability and lack of efficient system of registration. These are some of the issues. Additionally, the issue of corruption and free demand of bribes at checkpoints significantly hinders the free movement of people, goods, and services. And to elaborate more on it, you will see these are very great problem indeed when you look about the communication. The multiple currencies is a big problem in the sense that it complicates transactions and creates economic disparities and then hinders integration. The porous border, I don't need to delve because of the security issues. Later on, I think in one of the sessions, we also talk about the issue of free movement and then the security, because when I was at ECOWAS, it became a center of discussion that at what stage can the issue of Boko Haram, the issue of Ebola, the issue of pandemic be an hindrance. And it tended to be, during those periods, some individuals were not allowed to enter certain countries because of the, to control as well. I've mentioned the political instability. Political instability and conflicts in some member can disrupt traveling. For example, right now, despite the fact free movement, because some member states are out of ECOWAS now, but ECOWAS has not implemented total ban on them. In fact, this coming summit, coming next week, the 3 member states are still invited so that at least they be part of the system. Then, having said that, the issue of corruption cannot be overemphasized. Then when we look at it, the first stage has actually been implemented. The second stage is the issue of establishment as well, and then the issue of work permit. How is this inconsistent? You realize that because of the non-harmonization of the laws, there are still some member states that give some problem to the candidates of other countries that want to come. So in essence, there are limited political will at times. When I look at it, when you want to compare it, we realize that the ECOWAS protocol on free movement, ECOWAS has a more developed protocol on free movement of persons, including the provision of right and entry, residence and establishment, although implementation lacks in some member states. And not only that, when you look at ECOWAS interventionist policies, it's always there, because to have a sustainability, you could see that the passport, when they were even starting it, the earlier passport that we used to use, just like other countries, is the one that is like perforated one. But later on, it became biometric, that is now used for international. And then the sustainability is also being seen now. We have what we call ECO now. We are trying to do something like Shanghai visa, so that people from outside, when they come into the country, if they are visiting Ghana, they can as well cross it. So that has got to a very big level, yes. Meanwhile, it appears that the intra-regional migration in ECOWAS is particularly bent towards the protocols and mechanism in place. The mechanism has helped greatly, and then when you look at it, as rightly pointed out, because I don't want to talk much, the next session will talk more on most of these things, and I don't want to make a repetition. You now realize that the ECOWAS visa policies are generally considered more flexible compared to like the CEDEAO or EAC, where even in the case of CEDEAO, where you can move. Some countries don't have a reciprocal and you have to take visa. But in all ECOWAS member states, they are totally free to move from one level to the other. So it has also helped regional integration per se. But one area where there seems to be a problem, which possibly the next session will talk. Yes, in many ways, the entrepreneurs and businessmen appear to benefit more from the policies in ECOWAS, because the entrepreneur visa often offer a pathway to permanent residency. And this one always being given to those with business. But for those of us in the region, is a total one, is free, so that they allow them the 90 days, and after the 90 days, they can convert to anyone. Also, the skilled workers visas is also applicable in the member state as well. The visa policies, just like any other developed countries, prioritize skilled workers and often require a high level of education and experience, whereby the low-skilled one, at times, they were denied. And this creates a situation where the skilled workers have a greater chance of accessing the visas, while the skilled workers and low-skilled workers, they are differently treated. And some of the challenges I've mentioned earlier, the issue of bureaucracy, hurdles, and lack of transparency, obtaining some of the work permits, especially when you bring a foreigner to work with you. Then the human rights concern has also been there. The migrants may encounter discrimination and exploitation in the labor markets. Then the resource constraint and weak institutional capabilities as well. The inefficiency in the processing of the applications at times have been a problem. I also have here the exploitation and abuse, which we have seen, the issue of discrimination at times, but the only good thing is the issue of xenophobia, just like inside that country, has not got itself entrenched here. The language barrier I've mentioned, the economic impact, the entrepreneur and investors often contribute significantly to the economy by creating jobs. Then the flexibility, and then when you look at some of the areas where ECOWAS can improve upon, I think, let me just go because of time. I've spent 8 minutes now. I'm still having 12. So when you look at it, you realize that there are areas that ECOWAS needs to improve upon, especially the second aspect of the implementation is still a problem there. Here you tend to realize that the treaty, which aims at strengthening the sub-regional economic integration through the free movement of goods and services, has not been fully implemented, given the fact that there are still some constraints, which I know during the question time it will come. But the 1990 supplementary protocol on the implementation of the third phase, the right of establishment, defines the right of establishment, emphasizing non-discrimination and treatment of nationals of member states and companies of their member states to be given a sort of exigency. When you also look at the summary of the main expulsion provision in the protocol, there's an expulsion provision in the protocol saying that people who have a criminal offense, communicable diseases might not be allowed. But what they also inform us there is that the government of those citizens needs to be informed. That's another area, whether they are usually informed. And there's also been problems again with Ghana settling in in Gambia. I remember when I was at ECOWAS by 2006, we had to settle one issue between the two heads of state then on the 46 Ghanaian that were killed then. Likewise, in some other countries, these are other things that happen with people in those countries that ECOWAS needs to look into, which they have been looking into. It indicates, when you look at Chapter 4, Article 2, it indicates that a decision expel any citizen of the community from the territory of a member state shall be notified to the citizen concerned as well as the government of the state, which is a citizen, and the executive secretary of the ECOWAS or president shall incur the expulsion of the citizen. That is, they will have to pay for that. But I don't know whether those still uphold now. But the director of free movement, I had a discussion with him, and he says some of them are still in in the pipeline. The first phase, the free movement of persons, dealing with abolition of visas and entry permit, has already been fulfilled. It's already been implemented. And this provision continues to provide broad scope to the member state to underscore the purpose of protocol. Also, however, since not all people move in their private vehicle, for the commercial one, some of the people have to travel in the commercial vehicles. And the commercial vehicles are also allowed to stay 15 days, barred from if they get all their papers right. The second phase, which I've said, the rights of residents largely set out in supplementary protocol adopted in 1985, was to begin the same year. But the Lome summit of that year in 1985 postponed, they delayed it for 1 year, and it became enforceable. It became enforced in 1986. And that's what they call the ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Free Movement of 1986. And this one gives the right of resident and oblige member states to grant this right to migrant workers complying with the rules and regulations governing their residence, provided they have obtained the necessary papers, and it is granted them on equal treatment with nationals in member state of ECOWAS. So ECOWAS free movement of both that 1979 as well as that of 86 have been. The third phase, which is the final 5-year period, which was given a focus on the facilitation of business through the right of community citizens to establish enterprises and then to have access to carry out business. But we tend to see, when discussion comes, that in Ghana, some Nigerians, this open something, we had to intervene then, that was 20, and then you could even see Nigeria, which is 1983, 1985, Ghana must go. So these kind of issues at times make us to have one kind of feeling, but I don't want to go into that, but people will talk about during discussion. However, this right has not yet been meaningfully implemented in the sub-region. It has been very slow and lacked the political will. In fact, just like those of us that have been overseas, when there are economic problems, just like also in West Africa, when there is small economic problem, they always say it's because of non-migrants or non-member state people or people from non-nationals as well. So it appears that the third phase has fallen short of citizens' expectation in the economic performance. Yes. However, in what areas can we improve on? I have already told you some of the areas that we have the problems, and I will go straight into some of my conclusions now. When looking at this, there has been some meetings that have been held. You all realize that the ECOWAS Vision 2020, it has its own problem, which has 5 pillars on the issue of peace and security, but with the ECOWAS Vision 2050, which came into force now, it must be fully internationally implemented or intentionally implemented. It outlines a sort of roadmap for West Africa future, focusing on peace integrated. That is to say, everybody within the geographical zone of West Africa, you must be able to fulfill your obligation of being a citizen, and at the same time, once you have your potential, you must be in a way to develop it and then deploy it. That is to say, there should not be any hindrances. But however, we tend to see that with the economic situation as well, it seems to be a problem. However, the Vision 2020 emphatically stressed that it focused on a peaceful, integrated, and prosperous region where borders don't limit opportunities. The vision is anchored on the 5 core pillars: peace, security, and stability on the one hand, governance and the rule of law on the second hand, economic integration and interconnectedness. That's why, again, our founding fathers, during the time of President Wade of here, Obasanjo, and others, don't let me go into it. I knew they started this corridor, Abidjan, Lagos corridor. They also started on the issue of APRM. They started on the that other...
Doctor, you have 1 minute.
Other things. But what we tend to see is that whether they follow it or not, is another thing. But nevertheless, with the Vision 2050 is a shift from the ECOWAS of state to ECOWAS of people, recognizing the importance of individual well-being and development. The vision also seeks to transform Africa into a region where citizens have the freedom to move, trade, and invest across borders, contributing to economic growth and social progress. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, docteur.